It's me, Brianna, and you are listening to Are We Caught Up Yet? Marvel Edition. You can find us at youtube.com/SaveTheGameMedia and podcast services. If you want to show Save the Game Media some extra love and get early access to all of our content, you can find us at Patreon. Save the Game Media there as well, of course. Today, I'm joined by my co-host and friend, Sam.
What's up?
Not much. How are you today?
Say it with me now.
Busy.
Yay!
We need to have like some sort of cheer. Like
no.
I feel like just saying the word busy was like a really lame response. Like I needed like a sentence or something.
Well, no. If it's lame, then that's what it's going to stay as. Unfortunately, even more so. I'm just going to keep it that way. I'm also surprisingly tired. I haven't slept well the past few days, but not for any particular reason. I don't think. Yeah. So I'm flagging a little, but I could be much worse. I've got an emotional support dog behind me, so that's although he probably would try and rip my throat out if I tried to interrupt him whilst he's resting. Yeah, I think that's the only thing you asked me. So
that is the only thing that I asked you.
You did, yeah. Okay, good. How are you?
Sorry. I'm doing good. Sorry, my cat was like on my like footrest thing earlier in the mornings. I don't know why. She's like about 6 a.m. She's just like, it's time to go over to the footrest. And she does every morning. So I was in her way to get off of the footrest. And now I have to put my legs up on the footrest. So
I see.
There we go. I am doing pretty well. Overall, I'm trying to think. I have a bunch of days off this week because we got Thursday off of work because the holiday. I won't mention the holiday. I know it's really triggering for you, Sam. So I got Thursday off already. So I took Tuesday, Wednesday off because Final Fantasy 14 had the new expansion coming out, and I figured why not get like an extra long weekend out of the holiday.
Fair.
So yeah, I have been playing. To be very clear, I have been playing Dawn Trail already. They released it on the 28th for early access. So if you like pre-ordered, considering when this is airing, if you'd pre-ordered it, you could play it early. So that is what I did, and I have been playing it. And yeah, I have to. I think I'm going to change my character, which makes me kind of sad, which is why I haven't done it. I bought so in order to change the way that your character looks, you have to buy like a Fantasia potion. So I bought the Fantasia potion, but I haven't actually used it yet. Not that anybody cares, but I'm like kind of, I'm playing a bunny boy, and when you play bunnies, you can't wear hats. And I kind of want to go back to wearing hats. So I'm thinking about going back to like a cat girl, but we'll see.
Everything you said just dissuaded me from ever playing that game.
Why?
Well, you said the words bunny boy and cat girl consecutively, and that's pretty horrific. So
yeah. I love it. Yeah, no, I think that you would, Mike. For some reason, I feel like you'd play a Hrothgar, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you'd be boring and just play the human. Nobody plays the human. I'm trying to decide.
Again, I'm never touching that game, so I'm playing
That's
as
what
nothing.
You think.
No, it's what I know.
Why would you not play it?
Because I have like infinite number of better ways to spend my time.
That's not very polite, sir.
Sorry, you can't handle the truth.
No, I feel like I'm handling it pretty well.
I mean, technically, I would say maybe FF14 would maybe be better than like League, which I would never, ever, 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 ever touch. So maybe it's got that going for it, but that's a pretty low bar.
Why would you never play League? Just because of the toxicity, or?
Let me think. What's the reputation of League? Oh yeah, it's a cesspool. Why would I? You wouldn't get into a pool if you knew that it was filled with acid, you know? So.
But I have, and I did.
Yeah, you did. So you just committed to it. Whereas I'm just like, I'm good.
Yeah, no, I never ever, like, I am more than happy to play. I've always said this. I'm more than happy to play League with people if they already play. I don't ever encourage people to start playing League. Because, yeah, people are mean.
Yeah.
But I still think that we could play Valorant.
Nope.
What we're learning from these past 5 minutes is that Sam is a party pooper.
And you've only just learned this.
No, I'm just pointing it out for dramatic effect.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been watching anything in the past?
Nope.
It's been like 3 weeks since we recorded.
Nope.
Like that.
Nope. Been far too busy to be able to mentally justify taking time out to watch something outside of course, the topic today.
Fair
Right,
enough.
you.
Have I been watching anything? I've been watching a lot of anime. By a lot, I mean like a couple episodes. I'm still watching What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show. I started watching Ted Lasso again. It's really good. That's about it. I think I've been listening to a lot more music than I've been doing anything recently. And I've been reading a lot. And of course playing Elden Ring and Final Fantasy 14. So I've been busy. So yeah, kind of pushed that hobby to the wayside.
Cool.
All right. Well, today we are here to discuss My Neighbor Totoro. No, I'm just kidding. Spider-Man No Way Home. So we're gonna, as always, start with general thoughts. My general thoughts and feelings on the movie. I loved this movie. I don't think that there's many things that I could complain about. I say that, but I'm sure like I'll think of something as we're discussing. But as of right now in my head, I have zero complaints about this film. I think that it's as close to perfection as a film can get. 10 out of 10 would watch again, except for it's not available on streaming services and I rented it instead of buying it. So maybe I'll wait to watch it again, but I would watch it again. What are your general thoughts on this movie?
The tangents we've taken make sense. They all make sense.
Yep, everything's all of a sudden making sense. It was a wild ride for me.
Why are we watching all these old films and random Netflix shows? And why are we doing
Sam's
this?
just torturing me.
Yep. But here we are. I think it's undeniably an excellent film. And I think it's carried a lot by its uniqueness in the sense that there aren't really many franchises or even just things in general that you can do a project like this with. It's relatively unprecedented, if not entirely unprecedented, where outside of weird things like maybe like Power Rangers crossovers where you have previous actors team up and stuff. But certainly on a cinematic level, as far as I know, to have previous iterations be brought in to the current iteration in a way that narratively makes sense, that isn't just fan service, and then they execute on it and they riff on it and they play on the nostalgia, but not in a corny, cliche, cheesy way. It all feels very natural, and they came up with an impressive and worthwhile story to tell. I do think that this is like, it's nitpicking, but I would say the one thing is that sometimes, and it's in the minority of moments in the film, it does verge on like SNL skit kind of levels. I don't know that any of the actors like fully breach that, but it does sometimes feel inherently performative, but that's mainly just because the film by design is a celebration of Spider-Man, at least in the live action sense. So I guess you're inherently going to have some of that sort of schlockiness and amping things up, and like I say, like riffing on nostalgia and he said the thing or he did the thing, which you would see in an SNL skit. I think that's sort of what I'm getting at. But besides that, no, I think it's pretty impressive that a film like this can exist in the first place, let alone be as good and as powerful as it is.
Well said. Well said.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Well, to jump in, soundtrack. I think overall the soundtrack was good, not great. I think that there were a couple of standout moments. Like when what's his face shows up, Max. They pulled back in his music for just a second, and I was thrilled because that was like my favorite part of the soundtrack, obviously from the Amazing Spider-Man films. So I was really excited about that. I think that they had some fun things in the soundtrack. They got to play around a little bit, but I also think that it wasn't anything like crazy.
Yeah. No, I'd mostly agree. I think, yeah, the sort of like techno riff, like you were mentioning, was nice, even though it was like essentially a split second thing.
It was like 5 seconds.
It was still cool to have. I wish that they had sort of kept that when he reappeared later in the film, as like a motif for him. But I get not having it as well, I suppose, because it is from that point onwards, when he first appears, it is a pretty big deviation from the character as he was presented in the previous universe. So I guess they might want to switch things up and not just, but still, whatever. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
I will say that towards the end of the film, really like the closing moments, where, not to like jump the gun, but where Peter says his goodbyes and then his final swing to fully end the film. I think the music really amps it up a notch. And that, when he's saying his goodbyes, the music is very powerful, in my opinion. Like a very good orchestral, like choir thing, that is riffing on the usual Spider-Man theme from these MCU films as we've known them. And then just doubling down on that in the final swing to sort of usher in what we assume is a new era for the character. I think that I'd agree, good, not great, but I do think that more so than the other Spider-Man films we've had in the MCU,
for sure.
it's established the musical, traits and motifs and personality for the character better.
Yeah, they need to call the people that did the Spider-Verse films. Have them come in.
No, because then that would detract from the specialness of the Spider-Verse.
No, I'm not saying use the same music.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Have them consult on how to do good Spider-Man music.
Well, hang on, Michael Giacchino is the very good music. Okay, like I was about to forget to point it out, but there's one track on the score where they're on the Statue of Liberty after the fight, but before Goblin shows back up, where they seamlessly blend and transition between the three Spider-Man themes for Garfield and then Maguire when Maguire is speaking with Doc Ock, and that counts for something. I like that a lot.
I do. Even I like that as well.
Original music, but
okay. The next thing, just really quick, I am fairly confident this does not pass the Bechdel test.
I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't. No.
I'm fairly confident because I don't think that MJ and May talk at all in this film. Like, I don't think they have any interactions besides like, oh, hey, you're Peter's girlfriend, and which then doesn't let it pass the Bechdel test because they're talking about a dude.
And they're pretty much the only two female characters of note in the film.
That's okay. It's still a good movie. I'll let it pass this time. Okay. Let's talk. Okay. Man, I don't even know where to start. I love this so much. Let's start with like towards the beginning. So firstly, I think it's incredibly interesting to kind of see the fallout of what happened in the last film. Love the follow through on that. Honestly, it wouldn't have surprised me if they ignored it. So I'm glad that they didn't. I think that it's interesting to see the fallout of what happens, like in a negative way, because it feels like when Tony was like, I'm Iron Man, whatever, like everybody was like, oh, okay, rich dude, whatever, right? But for Peter, because it was like in such a negative light with everything that happened with Mysterio and stuff like that, and it was like, is this really his voice? Like, that kind of thing. Like, I think that it was obviously a lot more of a negative experience, especially because he's younger and he's not really necessarily independent either. So I do think that was like a really interesting thing to try and tackle. I think they did it well, of course, but yeah, I loved that. Any thoughts on the follow through from the previous film?
I mean, they couldn't really ignore it. I think the film would have been pretty lambasted if it wasn't.
It would have.
Touch on it.
It would have, but also we've seen stuff like that happen before. So.
Certainly, but I think not to this extent where it's such a fundamental shift in the status quo for a character, particularly one as like beloved and global as Spider-Man. I think if it was a more B or C tier character, you could maybe have gotten away with it. In the same way of like, Iron Man 3, Tony blows up all of his suits, and then the next time we see him, he's back in a suit in Age of Ultron. It's like, I thought the whole point of Iron Man 3 was him getting rid of his suits. But so stuff like that, it's like, and also it kind of fits for Tony. Like Tony would say that he's getting rid of his suits, and then he's just inevitably going to be drawn back in. So you can kind of excuse those kind of things, but still a bit of a plot hole. But yeah, like I think the film needed to touch on it. And also fundamentally, I think it's crucial to Spider-Man and Peter Parker as a character, not only because a number of his biggest storylines in the comics has always been about him either being unveiled against his will or him choosing to reveal his secret identity, and the consequences that come with that. And yeah, I think like you pointed out, like Tony revealing that he's Iron Man. Not only is Tony obviously an adult and is, you know, perfectly capable of looking after himself, Peter had his identity revealed against his will, and the whole like meta narrative of Spider-Man in any of his stories is about the balance between Spider-Man and Peter Parker. So to have that upended against your will, particularly when he's in such a vulnerable place in terms of his youth and, you know, his life, his position in life and transition, you know, to college and stuff. Yeah, I really liked it. Because of the amount of stuff that happens in the film, I understand that the Mysterio element of it took a back seat after the intro, but I do kind of wish that the through line was maybe carried a little bit more than it was. It kind of acted as like a natural, understandable branching point between the last film and this one to sort of set the stage. But I do kind of miss the fact that after really, you know, he speaks with Daredevil, that's kind of it for the Mysterio stuff. Particularly because in the intro of this film, not only is it the through line and carrying through that people know who Spider-Man is, but also that there appears to be like really staunch support for Mysterio still. And it's kind of not strange to me, but disappointing that element of the ongoing story kind of disappears.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like overall, I understand why they had to drop it, because it was like, how is he even supposed to function?
And also, there's just so much other stuff going on in the film that you'd just be overcrowding it.
Yeah, and now it doesn't matter.
No.
Awkward.
God damn it. Mysterio's still alive, though. I'm not letting go of that.
Actually, doesn't it matter still? Because the part that everybody forgot is Peter Parker, not Spider-Man. So theoretically, him saying Spider-Man did all this bad stuff would still be an issue. Right?
You ask a good question. I think that we don't really know.
See, this is
exactly
where I'm lost on like the ending part. But we can like discuss that more later when we get towards the end. But yeah, maybe it does matter. Let's see. Sorry, I have to make sure I write stuff down. By the way, you guys, this is really fun and cool. You can actually access the entire script for this film, like the final revised version of the script, online for free. I don't usually search the scripts, but I wanted to on this one. Oh, one of the things that is my favorite, my favorite thing, is the dude that wants to be Spider-Man's best friend or whatever. I can't remember his name right now.
Flash.
Yeah. Him going, no! It was so good. That was the healing I needed from the previous films of being a jerk. And then all of a sudden him realizing that Peter Parker.
Yep.
That was such a perfect moment. I had to bring it up because I couldn't stop laughing. I think I watched it 3 times because I was laughing so hard. Anyway, so then so we have like this moment of everybody freaking out, like that he's been found out, and Happy and May are breaking up, which is so awkward. I think I'm still a tiny bit lost on like what they were actually fighting about. Because she was like, "Oh, he's selfish," but like, I'm. Do you understand what they were like what that argument was?
I never really perceived it as arguing per se. I think it was more just that there was a misunderstanding. I mean, it's played mostly for laughs, obviously, but I think it's just that there was a misunderstanding about exactly what the dynamic of their relationship was. Like May says, it was a summer fling or whatever. And Happy is obviously a little more invested than that. So I don't know that there was any really disparity between them. I think it was just that there was crossed wires, and that sort of made Happy start crying his eyes out because he cares about her so much,
Yeah,
I mean,
he
who
does.
wouldn't?
She is very beautiful.
It's Marissa Tomei, so
yeah, I think it's probably safe to say that I probably would have gotten back together officially if things had panned out differently, or at least that's my opinion of things, because it didn't seem to be like a true issue between them.
Maybe.
We'll never know. Anyways, yeah, we get Matt Murdock involved, as you'd mentioned, which was crazy. And then is the moment where he's like, "How did you do that?" And he's like, "I'm a really good lawyer."
He sure is.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
What's crazy too is that like obviously Peter like has his like spidey senses, and they like did not go off.
Yeah.
So Matt's blind senses are a little more sensitive, I guess, than
Yeah.
the spidey senses or something. I don't know.
Yeah, he's. I mean, I think Peter did reach for it or like begin to reach for it, but Matt got there first, which is still, to your point, maybe indicative of potentially Matt is a little bit overpowered in the sort of sensory department, but
yeah, I think in like a true like running around kind of sense, I think that Spider-Man would obviously be able to move a little bit quicker, but
of course, but in the spotting things coming kind of thing, I think Matt might have the leg up there.
Yeah,
and a watershed moment to bring in a character from the Netflix shows, which again I said when we were talking about them was only canon in one direction. To bring him in. And
did you scream a little inside when you saw
I
this?
I didn't because the rumor was, I mean, we can get into I'm sure this will come up again, but the rumor mill surrounding this film pre-release was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, because we knew that Alfred Molina was coming back as Doc Ock. That was like officially confirmed. And then we started hearing about Jamie Foxx coming back, and then there was rumors of Willem Dafoe, and you're like, okay, we kind of see what's going on here. We knew it was going to be leaning into a multiverse thing. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were never confirmed. And in all the interviews, so I don't think Toby doesn't really do many interviews nowadays, but Garfield in the year and a half leading up to this film, as you would expect, was always asked. And he's like, nope, I'm not in the film. I'm not in the film. I haven't gotten a call. I'm not in the film. And then some set photos leaked of the three Spider-Men stood together on the Statue of Liberty set. And logical people looked at that and they were like, well, okay, then, they're just lying because they don't want to ruin the surprise. And one of the set photos actually was the table where Matt was, where Matt Murdock was. But it was quite blurry, and people were like saying with all the photos that they were kind of photoshopped. And then Garfield was asked specifically about the photos. He said, no, they're fake. They're not real. Like, I'm not trying to let anybody down or to build up hype. I'm just telling you the truth. So there's a whole lot of like obfuscation of the truth going on with this. So I kind of had an indication, getting back to Daredevil, I had an indication that he was probably going to be in the film. But to see it confirmed and to be done in like a really short, snappy, understated way, but also again a way that felt really natural. Like he didn't feel out of place at all. He just sort of was the Daredevil, the Matt Murdock that we knew from the show, was still very, very pleasant. There was certainly a freak out in the cinema when I saw it opening night.
Yeah, I feel like I would have not like literally, but like, you know, like like, you know?
I'm pretty sure I squeezed my mum's arm, who was sat next to me. You know, eyes widened a little bit.
Yeah. That would be my panic. Just because you brought it up, and I just like kind of want to bring it up, but man, like the performance, particularly for me, the performance from Doc Ock and Green Goblin were both like so incredible. Like I was so blown away. I don't know. I was just like, it was like, it felt exactly, I think it's like they kind of, it has to be a lot of the writing is just really well done for this movie. But like the way that they kind of played their characters, the way that they were able to kind of switch between like the different, like kind of like modes of their character. Like, I don't know. It was just so cool to me.
Yeah.
To see that.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about it when we talked about the other film installments. They were among the best, certainly, and they're the most fan beloved by far. And I think that is replicated in the way that, obviously, it's a testament to those two's acting skills in general. But I also think that the script and the way that the story plays out makes it very clear which of those villains they have the most reverence for.
Yeah, for sure.
Because people like Electro, whilst Electro certainly still taken seriously, alongside Lizard, is far more, no, I don't want to say far more, but more of like butt of joke, innuendo, quippy kind of stuff. Whereas Goblin and Doc Ock are the far more nuanced, interesting characters for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that it's like the perfect balance between like that kind of cheesiness and like the actual like story that they're trying to portray and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's so good. Okay, so next piece here is the rejection for all three of our main characters here to MIT. I thought this was really interesting. Just because like sometimes I feel like of course you would be able to like look into particularly MJ and Ned's like names, right? You'd be able to see like, oh, they're associated with Spider-Man. But like for me, it feels like it was surprising that the admissions officer took the time to Google, because they would have had to, because it's not like it would have shown up on their record or anything like that. And also that like that association would prevent them from getting into MIT. You know?
Well,
I don't know. That's a little weird.
Technically, Spider-Man is viewed as like domestic terrorist at this point, right? So right. I guess guilty by association kind of thing would I think make sense.
Yeah.
Particularly because the narrative, as the public sees it, is that Mysterio was a hero and Spider-Man killed him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like I think that it feels realistic to me, like in terms of like the world building and stuff that they set up. But like I think that if I was in that world as them, or even like tangentially related, I'd be like, that doesn't make sense. Like, why would you do that? You know? Like, so I think that like while I understand it, the way that it works inside the world and the writing, because we see like real life situations like this that are not fair. I also think that I have like a hard time with it because I'm like, that's just silly. But I
mean,
also know
like,
more than them, so
certainly you can make the argument that MJ and Ned didn't specifically do anything wrong, but I think there's also the caveat of prior to them being rejected, it was like pretty publicly clear that MJ and Ned were still standing by Peter, you know, which I think would go against them. Like, they might not be complicit in the actions that Spider-Man has done, but they are sticking by him regardless of the public perception. And I think that, again, in terms of the realities, the actual realities, we as the audience understand about that, the context of that situation makes it unfair for MJ and Ned. Certainly, I think optically, it makes sense that they would not be given the benefit of the doubt, given all of the context that is available to the characters in universe.
Okay. So next part here is Peter goes to Doctor Strange for help. Strange starts casting like a spell. It ends up getting corrupted when he tries to change, like when Peter tries to change it. And then the Doctor Strange like tries to like contain the corrupted spell. One thing I want to point out here at the beginning, just because I was like, the whole ending part is when Peter goes in, Wong says, "You can do this, but don't involve me." Right? And then goes away. Right? The end of the film, I was like, is nobody going to call Wong? Like, I think we've made it past like emergency enough to the point where we can probably call him.
Wong's just relaxing on a recliner somewhere.
The whole time, dude, I was like, okay. I was like, the answer to this like issue of like how is this going to be fixed? I'm like, somebody call Wong. Like, please, like, what is going on? I was really bugged that nobody called him.
Yeah, I guess you could tout it up to Strange still realistically as a character being arrogant and thinking that he can sort it out himself, which technically he could if Peter didn't continually intervene and make it difficult. Because if Strange had been able to activate that box immediately, the issue would have been, over and done with. So it is a bit unfair, but that doesn't detract from the fact that, like you say, towards the end of the film where things really go off the rails, it's like you could probably call in help, not just Wong, but just anybody else as well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, my thing is like, I think that from what I can tell, like my perception is that yes, Doctor Strange is probably more powerful than Wong, but I think that Wong has more knowledge than him and would have probably been able to provide some sort of like alternate solution.
Yeah, well, I mean, Wong was the librarian at Camelot for a long time, and also this film lets us know that Doctor Strange is no longer Sorcerer Supreme anymore.
Because he disappeared.
Yep. So Wong is indeed Wong is the leader of the pack. So he makes all the executive decisions.
Yep. I love that his real name is Wong. I don't know why that makes me so happy.
Yep. Yep.
Yep. Good stuff. I don't know. Okay, so after that happens, we then get this moment where he's like, "You didn't even try to call the admissions office." He gets kicked out of the sanctum because he's like, "Dude, why are you not trying normal things first?" And to Peter's to defend him, he has only been dealing with like supernatural stuff / like superhero stuff for like what 2-3 years now at this point. So I think I probably would have thought the same thing.
No, I mean, it's not even that. It's just that it's an indictment on how we're educated, that we aren't actually taught the things that are most valuable. Like, we don't learn about taxes, and we don't learn about, you know, politics in any sort of real meaningful sense.
Right.
Unless you go down those specific avenues, of course, as you
Yeah.
refine your education. But
Yeah,
in terms of basic general education, we don't really, like, to Peter's credit, we don't really know that we can even do those things because nobody tells us.
Yeah, and I also think that there's a lot to be said about, like, I think that we're taught as kids to not question authority at all. So yeah, I think that's also part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we go to the MIT administrator to try and convince her to reconsider the applications. And then all of a sudden Doc Ock shows up, which was a wild ride for me. Because I didn't know about that part. I have seen clips of like the 3 Spider-Men. So I knew that part. But I did not know that, like, 1, these characters were coming back, and 2, like, it was the same actors and stuff like that. That was like, it's a really fun and wild ride for me. So we get Doc Ock. We get some interesting stuff with the nanotech because he rips a piece of it off, and then the nanotech like I don't know, like absorbs into the claw things.
Tentacles.
Thank you, tentacles. I thought that looked really cool. And then Peter's able to take control of it because it's paired to his stuff. And then we, of course, get Green Goblin shows up just for a brief second, though. I will say that part confused me because, like, we've seen that Green Goblin can do, like, I feel like we've seen Green Goblin do like almost like Mysterio's mirages before. So I was like, is this fake? Like, I don't know. Like, for some reason, the way that like the bombs fell, the way it like reloaded, I was like, is this actually happening? And it took me a couple of seconds to like adjust and be like, oh, okay, no, this is real. So that was awkward for me. But then we've already got Kurt Connors, which is Lizard Boy. Right? So now we've got 3 separate we've got 3 separate villains. And from the other films, I don't know if you guys remember, but we were talking about how having too many villains made the film not good. But this was good. This was great. They did it right for me. So we have the Krypton spell, multiverse explanation, all that stuff. They need Max and Marco as well. Those are the ones that they go to get at the forest.
Yeah.
And we get that great moment where he's like, so what's going on with this tree?
Just a tree.
Just a tree. I will say I really enjoyed the way that, like, one, the villains interacted with each other, and 2, the way that you see them, because I feel like a lot of the times in like movies, like superhero movies, the villains just act like villains. But I feel like in this movie, the villains weren't just acting like villains. They were also like having like logical conversations. Like even like Kurt Connors, right? Like he was a villain the whole time. He was telling Peter everything was a bad idea, but he was like still having like those logical conversations back and forth with everybody. So I think it was like really interesting to kind of like watch that those interactions between them. I really found that fun and interesting.
Yeah, well, it's a very smart way to deliver context for the whole situation, only to Cat who might not have seen the previous films. like Doc Ock saying to Goblin that you died years ago. And then, for the same thing to happen with Max talking about Lizard and, all of that. I think that, and then Marco contextualizing that he knows that both Doc Ock and Green Goblin died in that universe. And then sort of like cyclically realizing that all of them have something in common to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
There are some plot holes there because the argument as to why they were brought through from other universes is that because they know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
But Lizard didn't know that Peter Parker was Spider-Man.
Did he not?
No.
I thought he found out like at the end.
If I may be misremembering, but as far as I know, that didn't happen. You could say that Kurt Connors like figured it out or like suspected it or whatever, and that was reason enough. But I don't think it was ever like officially a thing.
I swear,
in the same way that they were all, or most of them were brought through from the exact moment before they died whilst fighting Spider-Man or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't the case with Sandman. Or Lizard.
Yeah, that one, Sandman did bother me just because, like, from what we know, he wasn't in a bad situation last time we saw him.
Yeah. I mean, a way you could canonize and get around that loophole, the plot hole, is by just saying that post those trilogy/duology, those Spider-Men had other encounters with Lizard or with Sandman or whatever, and then in those encounters that we haven't seen, they learned that Peter Parker was Spider-Man or nearly died fighting him or fighting alongside him or whatever. Which would then make sense, but you have to assume that.
Yeah, do a little bit of jumping. Yeah.
Which is fine. It doesn't really matter.
I think that
bringing them in
matter enough to ruin the film.
Bringing them in was worth it, even if it doesn't logically make sense with some of the narrative justifications that you've presented to us. So the juice was worth the squeeze.
Absolutely. Okay, so when we have them all captured, Strange sets them up to send them back, but Peter doesn't want to because they're going to die, and he said like we should try and save them. Then we have this really, really, really incredibly cool fight between Peter and Doctor Strange, and I can't get over the way that they do the mirror dimension, as well as like the fight choreography for this film. Like the whole time, not just this fight, but I think it stood out particularly in this fight. The fight choreography is incredible. Like they are always keeping you on your toes. I don't know. I was absolutely blown away by the fight scenes in this film. Yeah. We also get that fun moment where he like can't grab it because he like still moves somehow. That was really funny.
Spider sense.
Yeah, he's like, "How are you doing this?" He's like, "I don't know."
And they have it's a nice little visual detail, but in Peter and his like spirit form or whatever, has the little comic book wavy lines going off of him, which is typically how like in Spider-Verse the spider sense is depicted. So to have those sort of like wiggly lines above his head, sort of as a omnipresent thing, just to show like a visual representation of how his spidey sense is always acting, is a nice little nod, but also would make sense.
Yeah. I also liked the way that they did the spider senses like later, like when something really bad was about to happen and he like kind of like felt weird. And you kind of like, because they like mess with the camera to kind of, they did sound effects as well as messing with the camera, and it like makes you feel weird as well. I enjoyed that as well.
Yeah, something I wanted to point out before we move past it too much. You said about, like the amount of villains in the film and how we sort of lambasted the other films that sort of started to lose their way a bit. That's sort of the magic of this film, is that it's not introducing any villains. It's just bringing old villains that have already been introduced to back. I think if there was like an additional new villain alongside all these other ones, that would be a problem. But the fact that it is just all the groundwork for all of these characters, especially if you've done the homework, has already been laid. So you're going into this film, and as they're introduced, you just know who they are and realistically how they're going to act. So in the same way that, like, theoretically a Sinister Six film would work, even though it's tons of villains, as long as the groundwork is laid and you aren't trying to introduce all of these characters at once and give them each, meaty narrative stuff within a singular project. I think that's how this film skirts around that problem that the other films did have. So again, it just goes to signify how unique this film is in its composition and how it really couldn't have existed in any other context.
It's kind of an incredible film. Just saying. Okay, so we have the fight. Peter wins the fight. He steals the spell, traps Strange. They go to Happy's apartment. Which I loved that, like, little, like, the camera footage where he's like, "Who's in my house?" That did crack me up. That would be my dad. So they do a lot of science, which I liked, because I think that we don't get to see, we haven't gotten to see this Peter do a lot of science. We have seen it. We haven't seen a lot.
Yeah.
Because to your point, like, a lot of the times, like, Stark Industry tech just kind of fixes the problem. But we did get to see him, like, actually do some science here, which I thought was really fun.
Still technically using Stark tech, which is annoying, but anyway, yeah. Your point isn't wrong, but it's still like tangent. It's not until the very end of the film that he is fully detached from all of that stuff. But him using it doesn't detract from the fact, in the same way that it didn't detract from it really in Far From Home with Mysterio and him making his new suit and stuff. It doesn't detract from the fact that it's still indicative and representative of the genius that Peter Parker is supposed to have.
Yeah. I think, like, him being able to figure out the chip, like, I think it's, like, in my opinion, I think this dark technology was absolutely necessary, because it has to be able to, like, kind of understand, like, what went wrong with that chip. Right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And it's
without removing it too.
It's the one thing that, like, didn't backfire, because Doc Ock remains, like, good for the rest of the film. And also it's the one thing that he doesn't rely on the other Spider-Men to help him with.
Sorry, Ted just stretched and his little legs were, like, sticking up in the air.
Yeah, he's snoring as well, which you can probably hear, but
I can't, but that was really cute.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I got distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. I did like that he was secretly good the whole time.
Well, not the whole time.
Well, after that point.
Yes.
So before we're able to, like, go through, fix everybody, Goblin kind of comes out. We have that switch, which is, again, the acting, incredible. Incredible. It was so good. I was, like, blown away. Anyways, we get that moment, which was so cool. We get, like, a whole fight scene, which was, again, super cool. I really liked the way that, like, Max's character kind of flips. Like, I really enjoyed that dialogue between like Goblin and Max, and like the way that they like the way that he kind of like convinces him like oh, gods aren't meant to like be held down or whatever he says. It was just I just really enjoyed the like that little dialogue and the way that it like made his brain like kind of flip the switch, and it was cool. Before we get to this last piece here, just want to mention that like Daily Bugle shows up.
Yeah.
I don't like those guys. I don't know how like Jameson is able to like take over the Daily Bugle like he is in every single universe, but it's so annoying. Like nobody's like, hey, knock it off. He just does whatever he wants.
But people like what's his name? Infowars.
Oh my god, I hate him so much. Hold on.
What's his name?
It is Alex Jones.
That's it. Yeah, I had Joe Rogan in my head, which obviously is a problem in and of itself.
But... So, yeah, I mean, same person, different font.
But yeah,
at least he didn't say that the frogs are gay.
Indeed.
The water.
Not that we know of. Yeah, I think he's like certainly this depiction of J. Jonah Jameson being like a internet, podcast type celebrity. I think that he's clearly riffing on that kind of thing. And J.K. Simmons obviously crushes it still, even though he's not really given too much to do in this film. It's still great to have him canonically as the MCU's J. Jonah Jameson as well. Because he just is J. Jonah Jameson. It's so perfect. But I agree that I guess my point about Alex Jones kind of counteracts that in the fact that he's a bit of a knob, but we have knobbish people running various corporations and publications in the real world, so I guess it's not that far-fetched.
Yeah, the one that I've seen being dumb most recently is a British guy that I cannot remember the name of off the top of my head, but
I think his name is Sam Heaney.
Yes. Yeah. No, I wasn't trying to mention you. Hassan Piker keeps going on his show.
Yeah.
What's his name? I can't remember.
I can't remember his name. I know you mean though.
He's also a knob, to use your term. But that's neither here nor there. Anyways, so I just wanted to point that out because I thought that was really interesting that the timing of him being like, I need to record, like what's his face is like, oh, I need to. He's like, oh, now's the time or whatever. The lizard guy, Piers Morgan.
Yes.
There we go. That's the guy's name.
Yep.
Anyways, so we get that whole thing on video because, of course, Jameson just is like, he has his own spidey senses, but in the worst way. And I just wanted to point out, so May says, with great power, there must also come great responsibility. And I said, Luna, she's dead.
I mean, she did say that. She did say that after she was hit by the glider. So it's sort of you can make
I didn't even see that, to be completely honest.
Yeah, that's what. How did you think she died?
No, I was just like, oh, she must have gotten hit by something.
Yeah, the goblin had like Peter in the lobby holding him to look up at May, and May had like the pipe or whatever getting ready to hit him. And then from the outside of the lobby, crashing through the glass, the glider came in when Goblin jumped on it, but the glider got
a little stabby.
I mean, we didn't see it stab her, but we know from prior experience that those little spikes on the front, they're very stabby. So
yeah, it's actually, isn't it on the back technically? Because it's like, I'm pretty sure. Anyways, doesn't matter.
No, because the front of the glider is what stabbed Goblin.
Anyways, I'm not gonna argue because I'm too lazy to like actually look. But I did not see that.
That is how she died. She got hit.
Yeah. Anyways, I just assumed that like something happened. But point being, I was like, before he even like realized, obviously I was like on the same I was on the same wavelength as Peter, not noticing that she was dying. But as soon as she said that, I was like, oh, it's a canon event now.
Mm-hmm.
Can't be helped.
Yep.
It's like in anime. People that watch anime will understand. But if the mom has a side ponytail, it's a particular side ponytail where they like have their hair like to the side and they have a ponytail like all the way like down here. So it's like a really loose side ponytail. If the mom has that hairstyle, the mom's going to die in the show. Happens every time.
Okay. Do you say so?
I do say so. You learn more about anime every week, and I think it's probably upsetting, but like also you can't stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so then Peter goes away. He's like, bye. Because Happy's like, run. And so he leaves. He also kind of got shot, which was messed up. Not surprised, the police are crazy. But okay, so then we get this really fun scene with Ned. Cause he's like he like goes like this. Like the way that he just is like kind of flapping his arms around and then like all of a sudden the portal shows up is so funny to me. Really loved that. So then he's like, we need to find Peter. Then we find the Peters that are not Peter in his Lola's house. And the whole like, hey, will you get that goblin? His grandma was amazing. One of the best characters in this film, to be so honest with you. Am I wrong?
You're very, 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 very wrong.
I'm not. I know everything. Anyways, I got distracted. Let's see. Okay, so so he is right. He can use magic. Right. Wait. This is something I wanted to ask a question about. So is it the sling ring itself? Or can everybody do magic just to some extent? Or is Ned actually able to do magic?
As far as we understand, Ned is able to do magic.
So
in the same way.
His Lola was right.
Yeah, I mean, I think they say earlier in the film when Ned and MJ first get to the sanctum that he says about, my family say, like magic runs in the family or something. And I get tingling in my fingers and stuff.
He's like, you should go to your doctor.
Yes, indeed.
Yep.
So the understanding is that he is capable of sorcery in the same way that Stephen is. Like, my understanding is that with the right training, anyone would be capable of sorcery because nothing was special about Stephen before he started learning. He just went to Camartage and then began to learn. But the sling ring is the thing that enables the portals to be summoned. I don't know that there has been an example of creating a portal without a sling ring. Certainly not off the top of my head, anyway. So it's like an amplifier for that given spell. Because you've had characters that have had sling rings taken away from them in the past, and they haven't been able to get it out from wherever they are. Even in this film, Peter takes Stranger's sling ring whilst he's got him webbed up in the mirror dimension. So yeah, like Ned is capable of sorcery, or I guess the way to phrase it is that everyone is capable of sorcery, but Ned is maybe more naturally proficient because he hasn't received training yet. He still is somehow capable of
Opening
summoning a
portals.
portal. Yeah. So with maybe with training, Ned could become the new Wong.
Maybe
That's in his future, or maybe, as this film kind of alludes to, maybe he actually becomes a villain.
Maybe. Okay, so we get Spider-Man showing up, all of them, which was really cool. I loved this moment. I loved the way that they, like, when the two Spider-Men saw each other, they were like, they started fighting. I don't know. It wasn't like real fighting. It was just like they were like kind of like weirded out by each other. That kind of cracked me up.
And they went to web each other up, and
Mhm.
Toby won, which
Mhm.
again makes sense because he's been Spider-Man the longest. So he would have more experience.
Yep.
Let me tell you, British cinema goers,
Mhm.
pretty tame, you know?
Mhm.
There's none of this stupid clapping once a film's over.
Stupid. You've brought it up so many times. I know you want to experience it.
I really, really, really don't.
Oh,
There's
whatever.
no cheering when something cool happens. There's no reactions whatsoever.
That's boring.
I cannot explain to you how buck wild my cinema went when not only Andrew first jumped through the portal, but then when he took his mask off and it was actually Andrew. And then obviously when Toby stepped through, like there was hooting and hollering. There was people standing up and jumping, clapping, fist pumping, cheering.
Mm-hmm.
It was ridiculous. I've
Yeah, that would have been me.
never seen it before, never seen it since. So this film has that going for it, I guess. What that means, I couldn't tell you, but
It makes British people lose control.
I guess
Their posh selves.
in a realistic, non-jokey sense, it just goes to show how meaningful both of those Spider-Men have been to people growing up. To see them brought back and sort of, you know, get their dues or continue their storyline or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably it. And obviously, again, like the rampant speculation, it was at like fever pitch. Even if you weren't like super invested in the MCU, everyone was talking about it. So to get the validation of, especially with Andrew, you know, who was again vehemently denying that he was in the film, no promotional, no posters, no trailers, even teased them.
Yeah.
So to then get that validation, I think that probably sent some people over the edge as well, which was it was cool. I don't want that to be a thing all the time, cheering and stuff, because I want to actually be able to hear what the people are saying in the film. Yeah. But it was funny to experience one-off.
That's cool. I love that.
One thing I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Because I really don't know if I'm missing something, but to this day, I can't quite understand what was going on between Toby and the Nonna character, because Toby comes through and then sees Andrew and he says, wait, he's not your friend. Yeah, and I don't know who he's talking to.
He's talking to MJ and Ned.
But how does he know that Andrew isn't their friend? How does he know who any of these people are?
Well, so he doesn't know who Andrew is, right? But he's saying that, like, the implied reference here is that he was able to, like, look up who this universe's Spider-Man is. Like, he was able to recognize that he's, like, in a different place, and he knew that he needed to help this universe's Spider-Man. And so he, like, had understood because of all of the news and stuff, like, these people are Spider-Man's friends. And he also had seen Spider-Man's face from the news and stuff, right? Because it's, like, everywhere.
Right. So
So he recognizes them from the news.
your suggestion is that he is saying that Andrew Garfield isn't the Spider-Man of this universe that he is aware of, that he is looking to assist.
Yes.
Right. Okay. I can buy into that. I'm not fully convinced, but I think that makes more sense than anything I've ever been able to conjure up. And on top of that, I could be reading into it or like looking into it too much, but Toby and the Nonna character do share like a little like wave, like an acknowledgement kind of.
The grandma?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't get either. Because again, you could assume maybe that in the Maguire verse,
yes,
that woman also exists, and it's just someone that he has encountered.
No, so I'm reading through the script here, right? So it says, so he says, yeah, I'm Peter Parker. I've seen you too. And then he sees Lola. She blushes and waves. He waves back. So she's the one that initiates the waving.
But why does she wave?
I think she has a crush on him. I think that's all it is.
I don't like that.
That's what it felt like to me. Like, it felt like she was being flirty, and he was just like, oh, cute old lady, whatever. Like, genuinely, I'm usually the one that's confused here. I did not have any confusion during this scene.
I guess a criticism for me then would be that the contextual information that is being conveyed to us in that scene is a little bit murky. Because the things happen and like everything you're saying could make sense, but the clarity of exactly what is going on doesn't really present itself well. Because that whole section, or those two specific things, what he says about not being your friend, and then the interaction between Toby and the grandma, has always been confusing to me. Because there's even I've looked it up, and there's even been people, I don't know whether you'll remember this, but there's even like a conspiracy theory that the grandma, again, not sure if you'll remember, but in Spider-Man 1, Toby goes into the burning house and saves that Asian little girl. There's a conspiracy theory that the Asian little girl is the grandma. So like
I love the conspiracy theories rather than just like she thinks he's cute.
Again, you could very well be right.
I mean,
particularly if the script says blushing specifically.
It says blushes and waves.
Yeah, so maybe, I guess, but
yeah.
So it's always just not quite meshed with me exactly what was going on there, but that's, I guess, neither here nor there in the grand context of the film. So
no, I mean, I get it. I when I get confused, I bring stuff up too.
Yeah.
But yeah, in this case, I don't think that I was like, yeah, it was just like she was flirting. The other guy just used the technology available versus like, Andrew Garfield, I guess, just wandering around and doing nothing. So next we get this really, really cool sequence where the three Spider-Men do science together, and honestly, I really loved that. I also really loved like them comparing their experiences of like being Spider-Man, of like, like my MJ is dead, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. I also like that they talk about like what happens after. It's only briefly that they kind of mention like what they've been doing since, but I do like that they kind of like give you just that little bit of like what's going on in the universe.
Yeah. I think not a lot of people talk about it, but I think that certainly the revelation you get about Andrew is very interesting. because he says, about losing Gwen, who was his MJ, and then
Yep.
says that, he kept going on because it's what Gwen would have wanted. But at one point or another, he stopped pulling his punches.
Yep. But at some point, I stopped pulling my punches. I got rageful. I got bitter.
Bitter.
And I just don't want you to end up like me.
And it's like that. That's a Spider-Man I'd be interested in seeing. Like completely justified, understandable why he would go to, sink to that low. But like a vengeful, like verging on villainous Spider-Man, I think is something that we haven't really seen before ever. Certainly not in live action or in media.
I was gonna say, you know how I feel about Miguel.
I mean, yeah, but I think that's different. Because I think that Miguel is certainly capable of violence, but I think that he's not doing it for like a malicious reason. He's doing it because he's actively trying to control things and save things. He's just doing it in a very aggressive way. Whereas a Spider-Man who has like literally lost everything and just doesn't care anymore. That's a compelling thing that I'd be interested in maybe seeing one day.
Yeah.
So I like that we learned that about him. And again, going back to the fact that a lot of the interactions, certainly in this latter half of the film, just wouldn't be possible and wouldn't work and wouldn't resonate. But, Toby interjecting and finishing the great responsibility line. And you can tell that all three of them sort of have tears in their eyes and stuff, and talking about losing Uncle Ben, and maybe she didn't die for nothing. It's like, that is profound, like moving stuff. And it only works as well as it does because you've seen all three of these people go on that kind of experience.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other things that I really loved about the line of like, maybe she didn't die for nothing, is I think what really resonated with me about that line is that it feels like that Peter, like the Raimi-verse Peter, like acknowledging that like his Uncle Ben didn't die for nothing. And I think that I really love that moment for him. Love that for him.
Yeah, it's communal catharsis for multiple Peter Parkers at once. It's the realizing, it's the in the second half of the film, not only with the other Peters but with MJ and Ned, it's the realization that he doesn't have to do our Peter, Tom Holland doesn't have to do things by himself. He's got the support and he shouldn't necessarily push it away. And it's also the other two Peters realizing that they have a shared experience and all of these, trials and tribulations that they've gone through. It is a universal thing, which then I think why it resonates with people in the audience is that then expounds out, and it's a universal thing. That it's why Spider-Man appeals to so many people, because the struggles and the troubles that he has are almost always relatively commonplace. They're just placed in extraordinary situations. So yeah, I think it's really excellent stuff.
Yeah,
and all three actors knocked it out of the park.
Absolutely. I think that like one of the things for me with Spider-Man is that like for the most part, I mean, I've been pretty vocal about it. I don't really like superheroes. We don't have to like get into like why I don't really like superheroes in general. But I think that like the one time that like that gap for me is like kind of bridged is like experiencing like Spider-Man films. And I think it's like what you said. It's like, it's kind of more everyday stuff that they're kind of worrying about on just like a grander scale. And it makes them a lot more like relatable as characters. So yeah, I think that like Spider-Man films are like one of the very few times that I can experience heroes in a way that like meshes for me. So I will say I looked this up because I just wanted to make sure. So Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out in 2018. This film came out in 2021. So 3 years later ish.
Yep.
Why did they not do the Spider-Man meme?
They did.
They did not do the pointing.
They did.
No, they didn't. I did
Yeah,
not see that.
They did. Whilst they were in the lab working on all the cures,
Mm-hmm.
Ned calls for Peter, and
Yeah,
all
and
three of them
they like
respond.
kind of did that, but they didn't.
And they all,
I wanted the flat out meme.
you're not going to get the flat out meme,
I wanted the
but
flat out meme.
they did a very clear homage to it, where they all pointed at each other simultaneously. It wasn't
I did like that
straight
moment.
up. It wasn't straight up squatted knee, her fully in costume, but it was.
I wanted that.
Contextually,
The first moment that they see each other, like all three of them, I wanted that moment.
but still, none of them were in costume at that point.
Well, they should have been.
Bree, I think you're getting hung up on something that you should just let go.
I will never let it go. So yeah, we get to see them do cool science. We get that really funny moment with Ned where he's like, yeah, my friend died of my arms or whatever after he tried to kill me. And Ned's like, oh my god. That part really cracked me up. Enjoyed that. And then let's see. Oh, one thing I wanted to bring up is I feel like them not seeing Jameson or like commenting on it was a missed opportunity for me, because I think that would have been funny too. Be like, what? That's the same Jameson that I have. Like, I don't know. Like, I think that would have been funny.
Maybe, yeah. I guess it's just a given thing, you know. But I understand it would have been funny to see certainly Toby react.
Yeah. He's like, that's my boss. Okay. Then we get, after all of that, like sciencey stuff, we get, like, in my opinion, the best part of the film, which is I think the part that you're like, oh, this is kind of like almost a skit at this point. But
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't stop laughing. Like, one, like the you make it out of your body, and like the way that they're like, if you don't want to talk about this, like, we don't have to, like that section of the film, I think I could watch that section multiple times and not get bored, because it's such a funny conversation to me, where he's like, I don't do it, it just happens. Oh, that was so good.
Does it just come out of your wrists, or does it come out of anywhere else?
That's a really good question.
He actually no, Maguire does answer that. He does say just the wrists. Yeah.
He's like, only the wrists, but it's like, also, like, would he lie about that? You know?
We don't need to delve
Anyways,
too deep. I think just leave it.
they also have like do you have like you've never had like a web block, which that for me makes more sense for Raimi versus Spider-Man, because like stuff gets clogged, man, you know? But I guess not him.
Well, and also just if you're overly stressed and going through something, you know, you might not rise to the occasion. Might not work.
He does talk about that. Can't perform.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And then they start comparing like enemies they fought. He's like, I once fought an alien made out of black goo, and he's like, I fought an alien that was like purple and in space.
Yeah, and Andrew's just. I fought a Russian guy in a rhinoceros suit.
Okay, this is like my favorite part, you guys. Like I'm just gonna read this because I could not stop laughing. He's like, I'm lame compared to like I just fought this guy, right? And then Raimi goes, can we wind it back to the I'm lame part? Because you're not. He goes, oh, thanks. No, yeah, well, I appreciate it. I'm not saying I'm lame. I'm just saying, like, he's like, we should just talk it with but it's just the self-talk, maybe. We should, because you're amazing. Just take it in for a minute. Then he says it again. He's like, you're amazing. Dude. I thought I was gonna like cry from laughing so hard at that part, because I was like, are they really doing this?
Because he's the amazing Spider-Man, get it?
Yeah, I know. It's so funny, Sam. Yeah, and the whole like we got to stop with the self-talk and like the I really needed to hear that. Dude, again, can we just talk about incredible writing?
Andrew cracking Toby's back.
Oh yeah, that part was really funny too. he's like, I just really feel like, oh, and the part where he's like, you guys, I love you. They're like, thanks. That part is so funny to me. It's so sad. This is how I feel. Like I'd be like like I'd be on No Limits with you and Taylor, and I'd be like, I love you guys, and that would be your response. Thanks, Brianna. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
love how I sit here and crack myself up, and you just stare at me. Anyways, so after this, we get again going back to like incredible fight choreography. Like we get this last fight where it's like there's a bunch of villains. They all have different powers. There's 5 villains and 3 Spider-Man, I think. I think that's the numbers. So obviously they're outnumbered. So it's kind of like it's almost like a dance of like trying to figure out like how to focus. I love I don't want to brag, guys, but I'm part of the Avengers.
That's great. What
Yeah.
is that?
Yeah, he was so happy about it too. He's like, "That's great." So enthusiastic. It was so cute. So yeah, this whole fight choreography was really incredible. The way that they like weave in and out of the buildings, the way that they like kind of interact with each other once they start figuring out how to work together. I thought that this whole thing was really well planned. Um, I just have like a hard time imagining, like even trying to start to plan this kind of fight scene. Like I just like the amount of brain power it would take me to plan something like this. And I know it's like multiple people, it's like a whole team of people that have to figure this out, but I just thought it was really good. I thought it was amazing.
It's where Toby and Andrew web on to Tom, and he like whip slingshots them both forward up into the air. I think that's my favorite move.
That was a really good one.
Yeah.
I always love the classic, like when they like slingshot themselves. That was always a classic. My favorite one is for sure the Spider-Verse one, though. It's so good. Across the Spider-Verse, and he just goes past all those Spider-Men. It's true, you guys. Okay, part of this fight that I think really, really stuck out to me is there is a part where MJ falls. Tom Holland goes to save her and ends up getting knocked to the side by Green Goblin. And then, of course, Andrew Garfield jumps and is able to save her. And I really love this moment because I think that it's like you can see how healing it is for him to be able to like actually save her and like fulfill that moment that he never got. I love that he started crying. Because I think that like obviously it's PTSD for him, but also like I said, it was like really fulfilling for him. I started crying too because I was like emotional for him because I was like, oh my god, you did it.
Best moment in the film.
You think?
Yep.
I really
and
liked
also
that
the one that arguably got potentially the biggest cheer. And if you look up a lot of like YouTube reactions from like, you know, in theater reactions to this film, that moment where people, you know, the shot happens where you see Andrew start to run to go to dive to save her. that's the thing that elicits normally the biggest cheer emotionally, obviously, but like because you can tell as the second that it cuts to Andrew, you immediately know what's going to happen and why it's happening. You know, there is that kind of like redemptive second chance at doing the thing that he didn't manage to do the first time round. And then to see him obviously get emotional afterwards is just very, very powerful, I think. Because again, the one thing that I think the Amazing Spider-Man films did best, undeniably, is, I mean, obviously you did, I think, disagreed, but I think the dynamic between that Peter and Gwen was very strong. But I also think that how Andrew acted post Gwen's death, both in the moment and then for the rest of the film thereafter, I think is undeniably excellent. And to sort of get a healing moment for that after all those years. Obviously, it wasn't that long between watching that film and this one, but for everybody else, it was, you know, coming close to the better part of a decade. So to get that catharsis after all that time was really nice.
Yeah. I really, I obviously didn't really, that moment with Gwen, like, just kind of fell flat for me, like, where, like, she, like, didn't make it, because, like, the way that it happened just I think it didn't make my brain click to understand that she, like, didn't make it. And then when I realized she was, like, dying or dead, I was like, huh? So I don't think I ever really got that moment, but the afterwards of, like, the way that he reacts, the way that he misses her, the way that he, like, regrets things, I think that that's what got me. And so, like, this was still, like, I think an emotional good moment for me. But yeah, good stuff. Is there anything else that you want to say about the fight before we move on to the memory erasing and all of the stuff after?
No, I mean, I'd just say that it was cool to see them all get cured one by one. It was nice to actually see Thomas Hayden Church, you know, and Rhys Ifans, the actors for Sandman and Lizard, to actually see them out of their CGI versions. And it was nice to have the interactions, you know, that Peter is the one that saves Sandman, and Andrew has the conversation with Max, you know, and Max is like, thought you're going to be black. There's got to be a black Spider-Man out there somewhere.
I know. I told him, I said, his name's Miles Morales.
That certainly is. I think that's really great. And then the sort of nice moment between Toby and Doc Ock, like I said, right at the beginning with the music, to get them, you know, and Toby being like, I'm trying to do better, you know. I think that is, especially for an aged Spider-Man like Toby is, I think that's really nice to see as well, that kind of perspective that they are far more contemporaries in that moment than they were back in Spider-Man 2. And also, when, you know, the rifts are happening, I think it is important to point out that, you know, all the spectral ghostly figures started appearing in the rifts. Very clearly other people or things or whatever that knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man from different universes, in the same way that the villains from the film came through initially. But you see, like, spectral versions of Rhino, you see spectral versions of Scorpion, of Kraven the Hunter, far more Easter eggy than anything actually like meaningful to the plot, clearly. But
I'm glad
cool
you're pointing that out, because I could not tell at all. I was like, I'm sure that those are like the main villains, but I was just like,
yeah.
So
lots of referential things, and then like weird side characters. Like it seems like there's Madam Web in there, and there's various other Spider-Man villains, I'm sure. But it's nice to get that kind of nod, because again, there are plenty of Spider-Man villains that we haven't seen in live action yet, and it's nice to, even if we don't properly see them, to get acknowledgement that they exist, even if it is in such a brief Easter eggy way. It's cool.
What's one villain that you'd want to see if you had your choice?
That we haven't seen in live action yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would have been Mysterio back in the day, certainly, but obviously we got that with Far From Home. I think, honestly, I'd probably say Mr. Negative, to be honest. I think Mr. Negative in live action would be pretty cool.
Oh,
both
okay,
visually,
yeah, I remember him. Okay,
yeah, from the video games. I mean, he's not from the video, he was in the video games. I think to see that and his powers in live action would be really visually cool. And also narratively, like with the whole Feast shelter thing, particularly because Feast is a thing in this film in the MCU. And May is gone, so it's carrying that legacy now.
I think Ted's ready now.
Yeah, I know.
Anyways, Ted's so cute. Huge fan.
Yeah.
Honestly, we're all just living in Ted's world.
I know. So yeah, it would be Mr. Negative for sure. I think honestly that's probably more viable than it ever has been.
Yeah. You'd hope. I would love that.
They're gonna need a new villain for the next Spider-Man.
Honestly, might be biased, but I would love just a very attractive Kraven.
Yeah, but I mean they're making a Kraven the Hunter film that's coming out this year.
Bang.
Boo. And he's all right. Weirdly played by the guy who played Wanda's brother in Age of Ultron.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you look up Kraven Hunter now, you'll see the posters and everything.
Hold on. 2024 film.
Yeah, it's Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Let's see. I mean, he's attractive guy, but not like. Let's see. Okay, I'm looking up the image. We could have done better, you guys.
Yeah.
And that is a wig. Anyway. Okay, so focusing. So after this, we have, of course, a way to fix it. The issue and the spell releasing is that Strange has to erase Peter Parker's identity from everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Including himself, of course.
Yep.
And we have this really sweet moment of like him saying goodbye to everybody. We say bye to like the other Spider-Men. We say bye to Ned. We say bye to MJ. I really enjoyed the dialogue here. I think that the goodbyes were really well done. I feel like for this section in particular, like the decisions that are made here, I feel like I could really viscerally like feel them and like understand them. Because you get MJ saying like, you have to promise that you'll come get us. And then when eventually like he sees them, like he sees how happy they are and like that they're in MIT and that like everything's working out for them. And he kind of decides like, I'm not going to say anything. And you can kind of see like for me, like just watching all of those decisions just made so much sense to me, because it's like, as much as she says like, and you know that she means it, like, I want to still be part of your life. I want to still help you. I think that you still need our help. Like, to see somebody be so fulfilled and so happy without you, it would be so hard to like take that away.
Well, and also like it's the fundamental lesson that Goblin inadvertently teaches him. Goblin says, you're the one that killed May because you're trying to have your cake and eat it too, essentially. You're trying to have everything you want You're trying to
Mm-hmm.
live both lives simultaneously, and both are suffering as a result. And interestingly, you say seeing them happy and stuff. The thing that makes him stop from reading out whatever he's got written down is actually the fact that he sees and comments on MJ's cut on her head, which is plastered up, and he asks whether she's okay, and she's like, yeah, I can't, it doesn't even hurt anymore. And that's what stops him. It's, again, not breaking new ground. It's just the idea that he is reminded in that moment that she is safest away from him. And it's like, it's the age old thing of like, if you love them, let them go kind of thing. Because if you care about the people and you want them to be safe and happy, if you truly cared about them, you wouldn't put them in harm's way. And inadvertently, by proxy, if he reimbursed them into his life, they'd be at risk. So I think it's something that, again, isn't really new to any hero story or even Spider-Man specifically, because we've seen riffs on this in various forms, but it is always cool to see. And obviously there is a more unique twist to it in terms of the contextual situation. Something interesting I'll point out, though, and you wouldn't know unless you know to look for it.
Okay.
MJ in that final scene is still wearing that broken Black Dahlia necklace that Peter gave her.
Oh, interesting.
So subliminally, there almost certainly is still something there that you could argue that she's just wearing it because she likes it. But my headcanon, I like to think that there is something. Yeah, like it's there for a reason. It's not in the film by accident. So I do think it's nice to think that subliminally, subconsciously, there is something that still draws her towards it, even though right now she doesn't know why. So it does potentially build hope that there is some. I mean, it's inevitable, obviously. We know how these storytelling tropes go, that they'll inevitably be drawn back together at one point or another. But
you'd at least hope.
I liked that little bit of visual storytelling that it's not commented on, it's not even really highlighted or indicated or focused on, but it's there.
Yeah. So I looked ahead. We don't have any confirmation of any sort of Spider-Man film moving forward, right?
I mean, there's nothing officially confirmed. They've stated publicly that they want to do more, obviously, and the intention would be for another trilogy. And Tom Holland has said that he'd be up for it as long as, the story that they want to tell is a good one and worth telling. I would imagine that by the end of this year, we'll have confirmation of, at the very least, a Spider-Man 4.
Okay. And I think that it's probably pretty safe to say it would have something to do with Venom.
You say that. I'm not overly convinced.
Because?
That would...
To be very clear to people, hold on, let me separate. I'm not talking about the Venom films. I'm saying the symbiote interacting with Tom Holland.
Sure. I think even that I'm not confident on. And I know that the post-credit scene obviously shows Eddie Brock, Tom Hardy, Venom, and then it leaves behind a little bit of the symbiote and it crawls away. But there is so much intrinsic stuff currently going on with the Sony-verse that... Okay, so here's a bit of contextual information. This is a slight tangent, but I might as well do it because we're here.
May as well.
The trailer for Venom 3 came out not that long ago, a month or so ago.
3?
Maybe.
I didn't even know there
Venom
was
3.
2.
Yeah, there was.
Ugh.
The second one had Carnage in it. And yeah, so the trailer for Venom 3 came out. Here's how messy this is.
Oh, God. Okay. Yep.
I assume you heard of Morbius, right? The
Yes.
film? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That came out. The post-credit scene for that film is directly following on from the end of No Way Home, where the villains are sent back to their respective universes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of Morbius, the post-credit scene is Michael Keaton's Vulture, for some reason, disappearing like everybody did at the end of this film, No Way Home, and appearing in Morbius's universe. Why? Don't ask me, because that's not how that spell works. They don't send people from a universe that they exist in to a different one. That's not what happens. But it happened anyway, because Sony don't know what they're doing. So that happens.
Okay.
And Morbius and Vulture, they speak to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And no joke, verbatim, Vulture is like, I don't know what's going on here, but I think it's something to do with Spider-Man. What?
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, maybe we should team up. And Morbius is like, that sounds like a good idea. At the end of Venom 2, the post-credit scene is the same thing, but in reverse. So Venom is brought into the MCU timeline, and he sees Tom Holland's Peter Parker with the whole Mysterio thing on the telly, like you see at the start of this film, right? The news broadcast about him killing Mysterio. It's like, I should go speak with Spider-Man.
Okay.
Venom 3, the trailer has come out. In the trailer for Venom 3, which is, to be clear, set in a separate universe from the MCU.
Yeah.
They have the exact scene, the exact setting of this post-credit scene. The same dude from Ted Lasso, I think. He's in Ted Lasso?
Yeah, he's Danny Rojas.
That same dude, same costume, same bar. They have him looking at the symbiote thing, the little blob of symbiote. And Chiwetel Ejiofor, the actor that plays Mordo from the Doctor Strange film, comes in an army uniform because he is not Mordo. He is just another character in this Sonyverse. But this scene is supposedly meant to be happening in the MCU. He comes in and he captures the symbiote because he's the villain of Venom 3. But he's not playing Mordo, even though that scene is supposed to be in the MCU, but apparently now is being retconned to be in the Sonyverse, which is separate. You see how messy this is?
That is beyond messy.
So this film, No Way Home, sets up, as you suggest, that Spider-Man is going to come into contact with a symbiote because Venom, Tom Hardy, has been sent back to his universe, rightfully so. That's how the spell works. But a little bit of the symbiote got left behind in the MCU. That's the implication. But no, apparently not. Because Sony has now made it where that scene is somehow still in the Sonyverse, even though Venom got sent away from that universe back to a different one at the end of No Way Home. And now that bit of the symbiote has been captured by Mordo, but it's not Mordo because it's just the actor that is playing a different character, even though these universes are seemingly somehow tangibly connected, except somehow in this other universe, Mordo is not Mordo.
Yeah.
So I think maybe what happened, to put a neat little bow on it, is that the idea behind it was that the symbiote would get left behind, and that in some Spider-Man 4 version that existed in at least conceptual stages at the time, he would gain the symbiote. Whether that symbiote would be still voiced by like Tom Hardy or not, who knows? But it would be a separate entity technically. So the Venom films could still carry on. I think what's happened is that since No Way Home has come out, either Marvel or Sony have changed their minds and now have to retcon that scene, which still makes no sense, because then what universe did it happen in that Venom got sent away from? It's a mess. So maybe they still will do something with a symbiote in the MCU in the future, but I think that it's more unlikely than it is likely at this point.
That is actually insane.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate you explaining it to me. Sony, what's going on?
Yeah.
What if they try and pull the games into it?
Hey, if they do that, I'm fine with it, as long as they handle it well.
They're not gonna.
If they do a live action Spider-Verse project and then Insomniac Spider-Man pops in and he rips off the mask and it's Yuri Lowenthal, I will have no problems. Sign me up. Same for Naji Jeter with Miles Morales. I will take it. Okay. But it's just they are so schizophrenic. They just don't seem to know what they're doing, and they never commit to anything. And they're screwing all of the canon up in the process.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Because it was such a clean break. They had set it up so well. It just made sense. You know, Venom would get brought over, and then a bit get left behind. So you can still you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have your Venom films with Tom Hardy separate, and you can have a version of the symbiote in the MCU. But no.
Okay.
No, that would be too easy.
It would be too easy. So I have one last question that I need to ask, just to see, like, because we kind of were like saying we'll talk about it at the end. Do the other heroes know Spider-Man? So, for example, does Doctor Strange remember when we went to space, Spider-Man was there, but just doesn't know who it is?
That is my understanding. Yes.
Okay.
Because that is how most of the time it goes in the comics, where Spider-Man is always helping out the Avengers or some X-hero do X thing. But it's only there. He's only ever understood to be Spider-Man. They don't know who he is outside of that.
That's good.
So I think that they're just setting it up to allow for that kind of storytelling to happen in the future.
Yeah, because that's what I think I would have been upset about, is if that got erased as well, because then nobody would have known to like call Spider-Man. You know, like, hey, we need help. Call Spider-Man.
Yeah, I do think that there is potential that it could just be a complete wipe, and that doesn't necessarily like negate the idea, because like they do with the exactly like with the suit redesign, like again, perfect, exactly what I wanted. It's a clean slate. He hasn't got any high-tech suit. He makes it himself. That's how it's supposed to be, and it's just like shiny fabric and stuff, and it looks so good. The shine on that new suit he has at the end is gorgeous. I think that having a clean slate, almost having the end of this trilogy be the starting point of the other two trilogies, really, where Peter is, you know, fashioning everything himself and sort of making a name for himself again, technically, in this universe, and being the sort of scrappy upstart hero, the friendly neighborhood guy that doesn't have technically any of these extringent links to other people that he's depending on. I think that we're almost at square one again, but in a really interesting space where the narrative arc is still existent for him as a character, but it allows for brand new dynamics and relationships to be established with characters that Peter will technically still know, which again allows for really juicy narrative content, but allows for first time reactions and impressions from other characters' perspectives. So
yeah,
they've got him in a really good spot, I think, Spider-Man.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm still really sad for him.
Of course, yeah.
I understand why he's making the decision he is, but I wish that like I hope that they fix it, because like, even though it puts his friends in more danger, like, I think everybody deserves to have a support system.
Sure. And he ends up in the cruddy apartment that, Toby certainly was in. in his films. I think that, and like Insomniac games as well. Obviously, he's in the shoddy apartment that he can't afford and paying rent and all of that. It is the iconic Spider-Man stuff that we haven't gotten with Tom Holland thus far, that we've hit the ground running now. And it's like really his true Spider-Man story is only really just beginning, which is exciting.
Okay, you guys, we have lists to get through. Ranking. Do you have any guesses on where this might fall in mine?
I mean, it's going to be very high, clearly, from how you've spoken about it. I mean, do I hesitate, or do I just go for it? And then do I risk a guess of number one?
It is number one.
I
will say it is. If I could tie it with Loki season 1 and make them like even, I would, because I feel like in my head they are equivalent. But right now I'm just gonna squeak it just above Loki because of recency bias. What about you?
That's fine.
Let's see. Where's my guess? I'm gonna guess spot 5.
Interesting. You're wrong.
Okay.
If my current listings are correct, I would be placing this. You might think this is blasphemous. I'd be placing this at number 9.
So above WandaVision, below Winter Soldier.
That is correct.
Okay.
But again, that sounds low, but I would say everything in my top 10 is like A+ S tier content. So
I don't think Winter Soldier is. So
that's just wrong. It's okay, you can be wrong.
I think you should reconsider that one.
Yeah,
maybe drop Winter Soldier somewhere around the 27-ish.
Disgusting.
Disgusting. Anyways, I also want to say that I reordered my simplest just a little bit. I just moved Doctor Strange up a few spots because he was looking real fine in this film. He was kind of a bully, but he's still very handsome.
Okay.
Okay, you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us for 2 hours. I hope you enjoyed this. We gab a lot, so I hope you had a good time. I had a lovely time watching the film. This is one I probably will watch again on my own at some point because I really enjoyed it. Do you want to give a special shout out to our current patrons? We have Alpaca Tom, Fabulous Brianna, Brianna's mom, Brianna's brother, Lindsay, Nicolette Knight, Cypher Primus, Brendan Myers, Marcus O'Neill, Lillian, Mimi J, David Hotright, Dave Harp, the Xbox Expansion Pass, Lee Navarro, Silicana, and Ellery Woods Parker III. Sam, where can people find you?
I mean, before I do that, you've forgotten yet again, Brie. I'm going to have to tell you what's coming next.
You are. Coming next.
We are going to be doing the Disney Plus series Hawkeye next.
More TV shows.
Afraid so.
Hold on, let me write that down because I swear to God, I forget every week. Hawkeye TV show. Okay, I wrote it down, you guys.
And the reasons shall become clear. I mean, also, like release order is roughly where we are. I mean, we did go No Way Home first, but that's the choice I gave you last time of get the Spider-Man stuff out of the way or Hawkeye. So Hawkeye is next.
6 episodes, you guys.
5
hours each.
Each episode is not 5 hours long now.
Just feels that way. This is what Daredevil has done to me. It was worth watching, though, for that one moment.
It was.
It was 5 hours per episode. Okay. Well, again, Sam, where can people find you?
Anywhere and everywhere at Sam Heaney, Heaney.
You can find me at Fabulous Brianna, FABULASTBREANNA. And you can find Save the Game Media at Save Game Media on Twitter/X or Save the Game Media everywhere else. We hope you have a good 2 weeks. And yeah, see you later.